现在在深圳的日子不好过呀。
Life in Shenzhen isn't easy right now. Before the new year, I was talking with my family back home, and they thought places like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen were way better, more opportunities. But now, I'm telling you, you are overthinking it.
A TikTok user captured the scene in Shenzhen at night, where crowds of people, unable to find work, were either wandering aimlessly or sleeping on the street. Another TikToker filmed the situation, stating that unemployment is so widespread in Shenzhen that many people are forced to sleep outside Longhua bus station to save money. One TikToker commented that Shenzhen is no longer the same as before. There are more homeless people, and many can't afford rent, leaving them to sleep in bus stations or under bridges. This issue is not limited to Shenzhen. Other cities in eastern China are also seeing people struggling to find work.
来杭州找工作差不多找了1个多月吧。
I've been looking for a job in Hangzhou for about a month, and it's been tough. Then I finally found a job, working for 25 days, and my boss had a chat with me and said, "You're not the right fit. I feel like my situation is really bad. If I can't even survive, how can I think about anything else? You've got to survive first, right?" I came here around the Lantern Festival, and it feels like so long ago now.
Many people in China went job hunting before the new year, but returned to their hometowns after a few months without success.
最近应聘的人特别多。
There are so many people applying today, and they all have one thing in common. They're mostly from out of town, coming back home. I asked about their previous jobs. Either they weren't paid, or they got laid off, or the factory closed down. They're all pretty young, around 22 to 26 years old. I don't know if this is happening in your city, but we're definitely seeing a big wave of people returning home. As unemployment rises, concerns about public safety are also increasing.
找不到工作也不能偷我的电瓶呐。
I couldn't find a job, but that doesn't mean you can steal my battery. I haven't even been here long, and my battery got stolen. There are more and more thieves this year. Last week, my neighbor's motorcycle had its gas drained. The one caught wasn't from the usual group. It was a young guy. Does it really take struggling for money to create a new generation of thieves? The United States is currently imposing tariffs as high as 145% on Chinese goods, causing a stall in U.S China trade. Coastal provinces in China are being hit the hardest. In the Pearl River Delta, factories in Dongguan, Foshan, and other areas have been forced to halt their U.S product lines overnight. Everything from raw materials to production and packaging has come to a stop.
你们知道现在做美国的订单有多恐怖吗？
Do you know how crazy it is to take US orders now? At lunchtime, we were still debating what to eat for dinner, and we were talking about what fast food to get for lunch tomorrow. Then, out of nowhere, we got a notice. Today's a holiday, and tomorrow we get a long weekend.
Public data shows that in 2024, the top 6 Chinese export cities were Shenzhen, Shanghai, Suzhou, Ningbo, Dongguan, and Jinhua. Shenzhen had the highest export value to the US at 422.3 billion yuan in 2024, followed by Suzhou with about 340 billion yuan. Among these 6 cities, Suzhou accounted for 20.5% of the total US exports, ranking first. But now, all US exports have ceased. Mr. Li from a Shenzhen factory said that many containers have piled up at Yantian port recently, filled with goods meant to export to the US. However, US clients have told them to pause shipments, and the goods are now stuck at the port. With the US tariffs in effect, orders from the US have sharply declined. Multiple foreign trade factories have stopped production. Guangdong's Silene Trading Group, which primarily sells ice cream machines to the US, announced its suspension, and the goods are piling up in the warehouse. In Dongguan, Dehong Electronics, with 18 years of export history, also declared a 1-month holiday due to the pressure from tariffs. At the Canton Fair this year, many exporters reported that US orders have either been delayed or suspended. A Shenzhen-based medical equipment manufacturer said that 60 to 70% of its US orders have disappeared, and it will be difficult to find replacement markets in the short term. Layoffs may be necessary. U.S. economist David Junhuang stated that exports to the U.S. account for about 1/3 of China's total exports. Such a high level of excess capacity could ripple through other industries, especially the upstream and downstream sectors in textiles, apparel, electronics assembly, and export packaging in the Pearl River Delta and Yangtze River Delta. Many small and medium-sized enterprises in these sectors, including those in export logistics and intermediaries, may go bankrupt, leading to widespread unemployment. On April 11th, a TikToker posted a video showing workers returning to their hometowns due to factory closures. The TikToker mentioned that 3 factories in this industrial zone closed on the same day because the owners could no longer sustain operations and had to close down. On April 15th, a TikToker from Wenzhou, Zhejiang, filmed the factory emptying out, with the owner fleeing, leaving workers unpaid for over 2 months. You see, we were doing fine yesterday, and today we came in to find everything's gone. The boss on the floor below just ran away overnight. On April 11th, another TikTok user reported that the factory notified workers that production of U.S. goods had been paused, and they were instructed to clean up and wait for further notice, with an extended holiday granted. On April 23rd, a TikTok user filmed the empty workshop of an injection molding factory and stated that there were no orders, and all machinery had been sold off as the company dissolved. The TikToker remarked, "This year has really been too tough." One factory owner said that this year's common experience for many is the inability to pay workers, factory closures, and layoffs, and that everyone seems to be facing difficult times.
给朋友们说一个非常真实的事儿啊。
Let me tell you something real, my friends. In our small city, my shop's hiring. And here's the thing. There are so many people applying, and most of them are coming back from other places. A TikTok user recently provided an overview of the current economic situation in Huzhou, Zhejiang.
你知道湖州现在有多少工厂停工了吗？
Do you know how many factories in Huzhou have shut down now? Many companies are quietly going under. People keep asking, what's the future of manufacturing? Does this factory still have orders this year? Can it keep going? Someone said that any industry is fine right now, as long as it's not a factory. A factory owner who's been in business for over 10 years said, why is the factory economy in Huzhou so bad now? Is it that they can't keep running? The truth is, it's because the rent is too high. Plus, there's serious overproduction, trade orders have dropped sharply, and taxes and management fees are piling up. The profit margins are so tight that businesses can barely breathe, and competition is getting fiercer. Everyone's raising prices, but no one's making money. It's tough. Those born in the 2000s and 1980s generations aren't so young anymore. They just can't hold on any longer. Do you think Huzhou's factories have a future?
In the past, many Chinese manufacturers would send product parts to third countries like Mexico or Vietnam for assembly, and then export the products to the U.S. under the label of non-China origin to avoid tariffs. However, the U.S. has already increased regulations targeting such origin washing practices. To avoid further high tariffs from the U.S., several Southeast Asian countries have begun taking measures. For example, Vietnam's Ministry of Trade has issued a directive to crack down on re-exported goods that are mislabeled with different origins, strengthening checks on the origin of goods exported to the U.S. and imposing heavy fines on violators. This directive took effect on April 15th. U.S. economist Ye Yaoyuan believes that the U.S. China trade war has expanded from simple economic measures to a comprehensive policy and technological battle. He stated, "This is not a game that the Chinese Communist Party can escape with clever tricks. Under the U.S. China tariff war, China's foreign trade companies are halting production, shifting exports to domestic sales, and intensifying internal competition. As a result, actual unemployment in China has sharply increased. People are noticing that the flexible employment group, often referred to as street vendors, has grown significantly, and the trend is becoming younger." One TikTok user observed the rise of street vendors on the streets and wanted to understand which age groups are involved in this activity. Look at the people selling instant noodles. Hey pretty, what year were you born?
I was born in 1993.
What about your friend, a 90s kid? Look at that young guy. How old do you think he is? Haha, also a 90s kid. These people setting up stalls this year are mostly pretty young. A lot of them are from the 90s, and some even from the 2000s. What's going on? Why are so many young people born in the 90s and 2000s joining the street vendor trend? The job situation this year is really tough. In the area where I live, it suddenly feels like there are a lot more street vendors. I used to walk down this road and barely saw any food stalls. But this year, when I passed by after work, I thought, why are all these food stalls here now? It's so weird. Is this what they call flexible employment? And now street vending owners are getting younger. It used to be older folks running the stalls, but now it's mostly young people. Another TikTok user noticed many young people setting up stalls as well.
现在摆摊已经是不分年龄了啊。
Now, street vending doesn't have an age limit. You've got people in their 70s and 80s, and you've got young kids around 17 or 18 running stalls. The thing with food stalls is there's no barrier to entry. As long as you get the location, taste, and hygiene right, you can sell. It used to be older folks doing this, but now it's mostly younger people. Why? Because it's hard to make a living in almost every industry now. And with the economy in decline, jobs are tough to find. That's why more people are turning to street vending. If you could get a good job, who would choose to run a stall, right? So now, street vending has become more competitive. A TikToker commented that the street vendor economy has emerged out of necessity.
现在晚上出去，马路边为什么那么多摆摊的？
Why are there so many stalls on the streets at night? Just look at the shops downstairs. Either they're for rent or for sale. Where did all the shop owners go? Some of them have started setting up their own stalls. People ask, are these street vendors making money? Wouldn't they be better off working in a factory? But if you look at the factories, most of them are either cutting staff or going out of business. The street vendor economy has emerged out of necessity. There are also reports of long queues for approval to set up street stalls due to the growing demand.
我们这条夜市啊，摊位全部都摆满了。
Our night market is completely full, no more space. I heard there are many more people trying to set up stalls and are now signing up with the property management to get in line. This shows how many people can't find work. Just last month in Wuhan, a few big car factories closed down. Old workers who've been there for over 10 years are now facing layoffs. As they get older, they can't find work, so they end up doing delivery, selling on the streets, or doing household services. I used to have a lot of old colleagues from Shenzhen who worked in design, and they told me they're unemployed again and can't find new jobs. Some even went back home. Everyone is struggling, just trying to make a living. But street vending is not without its challenges.
现在做摆摊的太卷了。
Now, street vending is so competitive. Let me show you. It's already 3 a.m. and these people are still here. They work during the day and then stay up until 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm really amazed. I would just give up.
你看的就是这个人啊。
Look at this guy. He's been cutting hair for $10 a pop all day. And now other people's shops aren't getting any business because of it. He used to be the manager at some high-end barber shop, charging over $100 for a haircut. And now he's doing $10 haircuts here. There have even been fights over the right to set up street stalls.
There's a fight over the store space. Who's fighting? They smashed a store. Oh my god. Why did they have to do that?
One TikToker pointed out that the large number of street vendors raises concerns about the broader situation.
夸张说，我们小区门口在傍晚之后已经成了一个小型的集贸市场了。
Our neighborhood entrance has turned into a small market after dark. I wouldn't have believed it before because the neighborhood next to us is small. There weren't many people and not that many stalls. Plus, there were regular shops. But now, despite all that, the number of stalls keeps growing. It just shows that every industry is struggling. Too many people from other industries have lost their jobs and are now trying to sell on the streets to make a living. But it's not easy. In our small area, we have 6 vendors selling braised food, and at least half of them are going to close down. There's also someone selling fried rice. Most stalls sell similar food. The situation is that when other people see your business doing well, they set up next to you and copy what you do until your stall goes from making money to barely making anything. Also, these people selling vegetables in front of stores don't pay rent, so their prices are low. This makes it really hard for fresh food stores in the community to survive, because they have to pay expensive rent. If one day most of these vendors put the regular stores out of business, will that be good for us as consumers? It's something to think about. Chinese expert U.S noted that, for a time, authorities discouraged street vending for the sake of urban aesthetics, but as China's economy struggles in recent years, the government has been unable to strictly enforce these restrictions. With the ongoing U.S China trade war, the economic fallout from the tariffs has led to increased unemployment, likely contributing to the surge in street vendors. Despite the Chinese government's tough stance against the U.S. and claims of fighting to the end, even those within the system have publicly acknowledged that the government underestimated the impact of tariffs. Financial host Chen Shuting from Shenzhen TV recently published an article about the urgent need for support in the export manufacturing sector, which has been widely circulated. The article states that, under the backdrop of the U.S. China tariff war, China's export manufacturing sector is facing an unprecedented crisis. Many manufacturers exporting to the U.S. have been forced to stop production due to unexpectedly high tariffs. Business owners are now waiting to see if the situation improves. But if it doesn't, their only option may be to shut down. Chen Shuting believes the impact of tariffs has been underestimated by authorities. Currently, U.S. tariffs on Chinese export goods have reached 145%. Additionally, the U.S. has permanently eliminated the $800 tax-free policy for cross-border e-commerce. On the surface, U.S. China trade now only accounts for 14% of China's total imports and exports. But the situation is more complex when considering trade through third countries to bypass tariffs. For example, in 2018, China's exports to Vietnam totaled $83.9 billion. But by 2024, this figure surged to $144 billion. Meanwhile, Vietnam's exports to the US increased from $49 billion in 2018 to $196 billion in 2024. In 2018, China's share of exports to the US was 19%, but now it stands at 14%. These figures suggest that Chinese foreign traders have been using third countries to bypass tariffs, a practice that is not unique to Vietnam. For instance, there are industrial zones dedicated to Chinese companies in Mexico and the Yiwu Small Commodities City in Mexico. Chen Shuting pointed out that many export manufacturers relying on U.S. orders are now halting production due to high tariffs. The most severe impacts are in the Yangtze River Delta and Pearl River Delta regions. Almost all export traders and manufacturers involved in the U.S. market have stopped operations. Some companies have been notified by U.S. clients that their orders have been suspended or canceled, and new orders under negotiation have also fallen through. The number of affected companies and employees is significant. Several facts and figures highlight the tough situation of export manufacturers. For instance, shipping volumes from Shanghai port to the US have dropped sharply. From mid-April to mid-May, dozens of sailings on the China-US route were canceled, and shipping capacity has been reduced by 40% from 376,000 TEUs, or 20-foot equivalent units, in early April. Container stacks are piling up at the ports. The busiest activity at the port now is processing return shipments. Companies that once shipped dozens of containers to the US daily now only send a few. Chen Shuting emphasized that the most pressing issue now is how long these business owners can hold out. Regarding the Chinese government's suggestion to shift exports to domestic sales or find new export markets, Chen Shuting agreed that shifting to domestic sales is not an option. In reality, it is overcrowding because the domestic market is already saturated. Companies like Apple, Meta, HP, and Dell have instructed their suppliers to increase production in Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries to avoid Chinese tariffs. Once orders are moved out of China, it may be permanent, and what is now a wave of factory shutdowns could turn into a wave of unemployment. Some commenters remarked, "Didn't we agree that the enemy would lift a stone and drop it on their own foot?" To put it simply, your products have too many substitutes, so people can easily switch. But their products you can't do without. Things like food, energy, and the C919 engine. They're not stupid, they've already figured it all out.